Welcome to Shadow Fable. Don't forget to subscribe. I used to believe that silence was peaceful. Then Thomas stepped into the fog, and the quiet became unbearable. We'd driven up to Hartwell Ridge at dawn, our favorite place to escape the city's clatter. Spring rain clung to the evergreens, and a low white curtain drifted between the trees, mist thick enough to taste. Thomas laughed at how it beaded on his beard, how it muffled even his heartbeat when he pressed a hand to his chest. He never feared the woods, but that morning he treated them with sudden reverence, like stepping into a cathedral made of vapor. "Stay by the trail," I teased, snapping a photo of him beside the weather-scarred trail marker. "Raven Loop, 2.6 miles. He grinned, saluted, and marched ahead. The fog folded around him until only the bright blue of his windbreaker pulsed like a lonely buoy in an ocean of milk. I hurried after, boots squelching in moss, but by the next breath the color was gone. My call, "Thomas!" didn't echo. The mist swallowed it whole. At first I thought he was playing, hiding behind a fir to jump out and make me squeal. I kept walking, knuckles whitening on my trekking pole, expecting his laugh to burst any second. Instead, came only the soft drip of condensed mist falling from needles. 5 minutes 10, my pulse ticked louder than the forest. Then my phone buzzed. New message. "Thomas, can you see it too?" Just 5 words. I thumb-typed, "See what? Where are you?" and hit send. No dots of a reply. I rang him. It went straight to voicemail. Something cold opened inside my ribs. I backtracked to the trailhead, convinced I'd missed him. Maybe he went for the car. Empty lot. A single pair of boot prints led out, mine alongside. Panic began to hum. I called search and rescue, tried to sound rational. Failing halfway through the sentence, he walked into the fog and vanished. They told me to stay put. 2 hours later, a canine team combed the ridge, found nothing but our mingled tracks that stopped as abruptly as a torn page. The official report labeled him missing, presumed lost in wilderness. I put up posters anyway. Our engagement photo, his crooked smile, the sapphire morning sky behind us. Every staple hammered into telephone poles felt like a nail into a coffin. Day 3. His mother slept on my couch, clutching the blanket like a lifeline. At 2 a.m., my phone dinged. "Don't look for me here. The GPS metadata said unknown." I tried calling again. Voicemail. Day 7. "Honey, the footprints aren't mine." I reread the sentence until the words blurred. Whose were they? I forwarded the text to the sheriff. They traced nothing. No SIM card. No tower handshake. "Impossible," they said. But a message is a message. I quit my job. Every weekend I returned to Hartwell Ridge with a satellite phone, flares, and a recorder. I'd stand at the trail sign and talk into the fog. "Thomas, it's me. I love you. Follow my voice." Sometimes when the wind died, I swore I heard footsteps circling just beyond sight, slow, deliberate, matching the cadence of my own breath. Each time I turned, the white wall stared back, impenetrable. Day 30. The texts grew longer, as if he fought a tide each time to send them. I was in front of you, then beside you, then inside the fog. It's like a mirror underwater. I see flashes of home, your hands, Mom's lilacs. But everything bends, as if time forgot which way to flow. I'm afraid of what's wearing my face. I screamed into the tree line until my throat bled. Day 45. A ranger found a small blue windbreaker snagged high in a cedar, 30 feet above ground. No footprints, no broken branches. The zipper was rusted, though it had only been 6 weeks. My hands shook as I signed the evidence form. That night the phone rang, an actual call. Tom's name glowed on the screen. I answered before the first ring finished. Faint breathing, then a chorus of whispers, layered atop one another, like a crowd reciting different prayers in one breath. Within it, his voice. "I can't keep it out much longer." "What, Thomas? Tell me." The line crackled. Through static came a second voice, almost his, but flatter, hungrier. "I see you," it hissed, and the call ended. I threw the phone away. but it buzzed in the dark like a trapped insect. New message. I forced myself to read. It's wearing the windbreaker now. If you love me, don't answer when it knocks. Day 46, sunset. I left my apartment lights off. City sounds drifted up. Taxis, distant sirens, someone's TV laugh track. Safe noises. Normal. Then from the hall, 3 deliberate knocks. Hollow. Dangerous. I sat on the floor clutching a kitchen knife. The peephole glowed faintly, as if a candle burned on the other side. My phone vibrated again. Please. A 4th knock, softer, almost polite. Against every instinct I stood, raised an eye to the peephole. A man in a blue windbreaker, hood up, head bowed so I couldn't see his face. One hand held a phone to the doorframe, a live feed of me peering out. His other hand dangled at his side, fingers too long, joints bowed backward, dripping water as if pulled from a lake. "Thomas?" I whispered before I could stop myself. The figure tilted its head. Bones cracked like ice in spring. It lifted a single finger, pressed it to where lips would be, and mouthed the word, "Shh." My own phone chimed. That's not me. I stumbled back. The hallway light flickered, and through the peephole the figure vanished. No footsteps, no retreating shadow. The only proof it had stood there was a smear of lake water across my welcome mat. I called the sheriff again. They arrived, found nothing but the wet smudge. They asked if maybe I'd imagined it. I almost wished I had. 7 months later. Missing person flyers fade fast in rain, but I still replace them. The messages slowed, then stopped entirely after that night. My phone is silent, mercifully so. Yet every dawn when fog rolls off the river and creeps between city blocks, I see shapes that don't move with the wind. People in blue coats staring into shop windows long after the stores close. Their reflections don't follow when they turn. Last week a boy wandered out of Hartwell Ridge, 6 miles from where Thomas disappeared. Dirty, barefoot, eyes glassy as river stones. He clutched a phone that wasn't his, blank screen, battery dead. Search teams identified him as Caleb Winslow, missing since 1998. He hadn't aged a day. They asked if he said anything. I shook my head, but I lied. He said one thing, a phrase that woke me every hour since. It's wearing the windbreaker now. Tonight the forecast calls for heavy fog. I've taped every lock. But deep in the hush between traffic lights, I sometimes hear 3 knocks, patient and certain, testing the wood grain for weakness. My phone remains on the table, face down, because I know the next message will not be from Thomas. I think perhaps Thomas is already gone. Silence isn't peaceful. It's just the breath you hold while something decides whether to take you too. I was 19 when my brother Eli vanished on the walk home from school, leaving a single red sneaker in a ditch by Old Briar Road. 8 years later, last October, Deputy Morales called me back to Grayson County with 4 unbelievable words. We think he's alive. I drove overnight, headlights tunneling through rolling banks of fog that smelled faintly of damp hay and engine coolant, the same scent that haunted our town every harvest season. In the gray dawn, I found a small crowd gathered outside the sheriff's office, staring at a boy in an oversized sweatshirt, sneakers swinging off the bench. Eli's freckles, Eli's cowlick hair, and Eli's exact 8-year-old face. I knelt in front of him, heartbeat drumming in my ears. "Eli, it's Mara. Do you remember me?" His brown eyes lifted, glassy as stagnant pond water. "You're taller," he said, voice thin but unmistakable. I hugged him. The bones under that sweatshirt felt fragile, hollow, like bird wings. The crowd exhaled in collective relief, yet something in the silence between our breaths felt wrong. An electric hum where warmth should have been. The sheriff released him into my care. Our parents had died in a car crash the year after Eli disappeared, leaving me sole guardian of the home I'd abandoned for college. We drove there with the windows cracked. Eli complained the car smelled too loud. He barely blinked at the peeling paint or weeds choking the porch. Inside, he wandered each room in slow circles, fingertips brushing walls as if reading Braille. He stopped at his old bedroom door and whispered, "It's still here," before stepping inside. At dinner, I made his favorite, mac and cheese with hot dogs, but he only nibbled a noodle, eyes fixed on the darkening fields outside. Crickets sang, a combine growled miles away. Eli flinched at every sound, wincing like the noise scraped his skin. When night settled, he asked if he could sleep under the bed, not on it. "Too open," he murmured. I agreed, tucking a blanket around him against the dusty floorboards. I lay awake, listening. Around midnight came a soft scraping, as if nails raked wood in slow, methodical lines. I eased the bedroom door open. The house smelled of earth after rain. Eli's room was empty, save for the blanket puddled beneath the frame. Heart pounding, I followed the sound down the hallway. He crouched at the back door, bare feet on cold linoleum, tracing shapes in the fogged glass. When I touched his shoulder, he hissed like a feral thing. Then his eyes cleared and he whispered, "Shh, it listens." Over the next days, townsfolk arrived with casseroles and bright smiles, eager to see the miracle boy. Eli hid whenever someone knocked, under beds, behind curtains. If cornered, he stared past them, pupils blown wide, repeating odd questions. "Do you remember the snow that burned? Or has the sky always kept moving?" They left puzzled, casseroles untouched. I studied missing person photos pinned to the kitchen corkboard. Eli, 8 years old, missing poster grin. Now he sat at the table exactly that age, humming tunelessly, tapping a fork in patterns that never repeated. Online articles about child returnees blurred my vision. A psychology forum speculated trauma froze their growth or extreme malnutrition stunted them. None explained the photo I found in Eli's pocket, a faded Polaroid of a girl I didn't know, circa 1970, wearing our town's elementary uniform. Scrawled on the back, in shaky pencil, "Returned October." There were 6 more photos hidden beneath his mattress. Different children, different decades, all labeled "returned" with autumn dates. The first frost came early that year. Mist pooled over the soybean fields each evening, wrapping the house in damp cotton. Eli lingered by windows, breathing so shallowly the panes never fogged. One night, I woke to the smell of pond water and found him standing in the front yard, pale in the moonlight, speaking into the haze. My throat tightened. A figure emerged, a tall silhouette, limbs jointed wrong, as if sketched by a child unsure where bones belonged. Eli held out his hand. I lunged, snatched him, and bolted inside, slamming the lock. The silhouette didn't chase. It simply unfolded back into the mist like black ink in milk. Eli trembled but didn't cry. "It's lonely," he whispered against my shoulder. "It keeps the others where time doesn't hurt. But I asked to see you." "What is it?" I demanded. He looked up, and for an instant his face seemed older, creases at the eyes, grief etched deep, before snapping back to 8. "The Neverfolk. They sing the years away." I called Deputy Morales. The line crackled. Cell towers were half dead in the valley. He promised to drive out at first light. I barricaded every door, heart thudding. Eli curled beneath the kitchen table. I thought of our parents' crash, realized they'd died on that same stretch of road where Eli vanished. Old Briar bends past the marsh. A sickness blossomed in my gut. What if the Neverfolk watched our lives like fishermen watching bobbers, plucking us one by one? Near dawn, heavy knocks shook the porch, 3 measured blows that rattled glass. I grabbed Dad's rust-flecked shotgun. "Stay here," I hissed to Eli. Through the peephole, fog writhed across the yard. A silhouette stood at the steps, shoulders brushing the porch eaves. Its head turned too far, as if curious how the hinges in its neck worked. The doorframe groaned. Wood splintered. A clawed hand, gray and wet, wormed through. I fired. The blast echoed like thunder trapped indoors. The thing recoiled, hissing. A chorus of childlike voices layered beneath a bass moan. I fired again. The porch light flickered. then blue. In that heartbeat of darkness, the door stilled. When the filament glowed back to life, the silhouette was gone. Only mist drifted beyond the threshold, swirling around a perfect circle of scorched porch boards. I ran to Eli, but the space beneath the table was empty, a single red sneaker lying on its side. Footsteps overhead creaked toward the attic ladder. I climbed, shotgun clutched tight. The hatch gaped like a broken mouth. In the attic's dust-scented darkness, something shuffled among boxes. "Mara?" Eli's voice, small, afraid. I edged forward. He was crouched by the dormer window, glass iced with dew. Beside him squatted the gray figure. Longer now, limbs telescoping until the attic beams bowed. It held Eli's hand gently, almost tender. Eli met my eyes. "Time hurts," he murmured. "It can take the pain away. You can come too." The Neverfolk's face rippled. No eyes, no mouth, only shifting folds like wet clay searching for form. In its surface, I glimpsed other children's faces, flickering like film frames. The girl from the Polaroid, a boy in 1950s overalls, a toddler clutching a stuffed bear, each frozen at the age they were lost. I aimed, finger whitening on the trigger, but Eli shook his head. "Bullets don't matter there," he said, voice suddenly ancient. "Choose quick. Dawn steals the door." A pale glow seeped through cracks in the roof, the first slice of sunrise. The figure's body thinned, mist drawing it backward. Eli squeezed my fingers once, smile fragile as frost. "I wanted to say goodbye, right?" he whispered, and stepped into the gray. The attic filled with swirling fog, then both were gone. Only dust spiraled in the slanted sunbeam. Deputy Morales arrived to find me on the attic floor, cradling a red sneaker. No footprints, no shell casings, just a faint scent of pond water and burnt wood. They searched the property for days. Headlines mourned, "Boy lost again." Townsfolk avoided me after that, whispering about curses and grief. Every October, just before dawn, mist blankets Old Briar Road. On the third knock, I bolt upright, heart hammering, because I know the Neverfolk are patient. Time doesn't hurt them, but time wounds me, year by year, memory by memory, until someday the fog will seep through the cracks and I'll follow the sound of Eli's voice, still 8, still barefoot, calling from a place where mornings never come. I still remember the last time I saw Mark, standing beneath the twisted pines of Pine Hollow, his pack strapped tight and a grin that could melt the last of winter's snow. We had planned our wedding for 6 months, and this weekend was meant to be our escape. Just the two of us beneath a canopy of moss and mist. Our car smelled of pine-scented wax and his cologne, cedarwood and smoke. I felt a flicker of something holy in the quiet, as though the forest itself blessed our love. We set out early that Saturday, the trail damp with last night's rain. Mist hovered between the trunks like ghosts in white robes. Mark carried the map. I carried snacks and a journal. Our boots crunched over needles and we paused at a granite outcrop where ferns curled in emerald spirals. He pulled me close and brushed a berry-stained kiss on my cheek. When he laughed, something in the mist winked, an echo, or maybe a pair of eyes watching from the undergrowth. That night, I woke to find him gone. His side of the tent lay collapsed, zipper torn open. My heart pounded so loud I thought the walls would shake. Outside, the camp remained untouched, stove cold, lantern unlit, his pack resting by the trees. Only one of his hiking boots lay on the ground, the other missing as if swallowed by the earth. My scream tore through the forest, splintering the stillness. Search and rescue tramped the woods for 2 days, following nothing but my footprints. They found no sign of Mark, no broken twigs, no footprints beyond the tent's perimeter. A single, fleeting silhouette flashed between 2 cedars, but no one else saw it. Back at home, I plastered his face on every lamppost and digital bulletin board in town. Each missing Mark Hollis poster felt like carving his name into my own heartbeat. 3 nights after he vanished, my phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. The screen showed his name and a single message. "Are you breathing?" My fingers shook as I typed back. "Who is this?" The reply came almost instantly. "It's me. I took a wrong turn. Don't worry." The text felt both familiar and false, like a recording of his laugh. I called his number until my thumbs bled, but every call went to dead air. I forwarded the messages to the sheriff, but they offered only a tired, "We're looking into it." Over the next week, the texts grew urgent and strange. "I can't find daylight. The trees moved overnight. They're chanting my name. I love you. I'm cold. It's late. Come." I learned to read the subtle shifts, how the words slanted differently, how the I in "I love you" had a jagged stroke, as if written by a trembling hand. I felt his absence in every buzzing vibration, every phantom ring when I touched my ear. On the 8th night, I returned to Pine Hollow. I parked at the trailhead under a sky bruised purple, heart thundering like hooves. The forest smelled of damp tobacco and decay, a hunger buried deep in the loam. My phone's GPS pinged at the tent clearing. I found the canvas tent haloed by moonlight, the missing boot lying in the doorway like a discarded doll's shoe. Inside, the ground had been scraped raw, fibers of the tent roof shredded. I whispered his name and felt the forest hold its breath. I followed the trail deeper, phone clenched tight. At a moss-covered stump, I found his phone lying face up on a bed of pine needles. The screen glowed with a new message. "You made it. Look up." I lowered the phone. Above me, branches writhed, their gnarled limbs twisting toward the silver eye of the moon. A low hum threaded through the pines, 1,000 voices intoning a single syllable. "Mark." My breath came as gasps. Then I saw it, footprints circling the clearing in perfect symmetry, each step a fraction closer to the tree line. I stepped back, heart pounding until vision blurred. At dusk, I stumbled into a small glade where damp shoes lay arranged in a spiral, Mark's boots at the center, pointing outward like compass needles gone mad. In the center lay his body, face down in a shallow pool of collected rainwater. His jacket was torn, his hair fanned around him like dark reeds floating in oil. The scent of rot stung my nose. I dropped to my knees, trembling, and reached out. But the moment my fingers brushed his shoulder, his head jerked up, snapping toward me with a dead man's grin. His eyes were hollow prisms, reflecting every star in the sky. The silence shattered as he began to speak, voice layered in 1,000 echoes. "Come deeper, where the trees know your name." I scrambled away as branches groaned overhead, and the forest floor shifted like a living thing. The pines closed in, needles rattling like bones. I ran until my lungs burned, until moonlight surrendered to headlights, and I burst onto the highway. My hands bled from brambles. My throat was raw from screaming. I never looked back. Back home, I dropped his phone on the table and fled into the shower, scalding water washing away mud and the memory of those empty eyes. I stayed in the bathroom until dawn, listening to my heart pound against cracked tile. Weeks passed. The texts stopped. My phone sat silent, an innocent, dead thing. I collected his mementos, packed them in boxes, his flannel shirt, his compass, our wedding invitations. I thought that might be enough to close the door on that nightmare. But last night at 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up again. I stared at the screen, breath catching in my chest. "I'm lost without you. I don't know if I'll answer. I don't know if I can bear another echo from the trail. But I feel the forest's hush pressing against my window, waiting for my reply." I first noticed something was wrong on a Tuesday. My phone buzzed at precisely 11:47 p.m., Mark's usual time to pull into Eastwood Station after his late shift at the market. Yet the map pinpointed him standing alone on Platform 2, beneath a flickering overhead lamp. I texted him immediately. "Where are you?" No response. When I called, his voicemail greeting played on loop, cheerful and oblivious. "Hey, it's Mark." That night, I stared at the blinking dot on my screen, marking a lone silhouette on empty concrete. By Wednesday, panic had stolen my breath. I drove through quiet suburban streets until the station loomed, its neon signs sputtering above locked gates. Rain fell in cold sheets, pooling at my feet. Through the chain-link fence I saw the single boot, Mark's boot, dangling from the railing. No matching pair, no footprints, no briefcase. My chest tightened as thunder rumbled far off. I pressed my phone to the chain links. "Please text me. I'm here." Nothing. Thursday night, his ringtone echoed down my hallway at 11:47 p.m. I snatched the phone, heart hammering. The caller ID read Eastwood Station. I answered, my voice trembling. Silence. Then a distant hum, metallic and low, like a train engine humming in reverse. Before I could ask what that meant, the line went dead. I pounded the screen, but no further pings came. When I twisted back toward my bedroom door, the hallway light had gone out. Friday arrived in a gray drizzle. I poured coffee into a thermos, email and texts from worried friends blinking on my laptop. Mark didn't show up today. Did you hear from him? I scrolled through the week's location pings, each one identical. 11:47 p.m., Platform 2, Eastwood Station. The times before that, Mondays and Tuesdays, I'd assumed his train was delayed, but Thursday's boot in the rain told me this was no commuter's error. That evening, I packed my raincoat, flashlight, and a spare battery for my phone. I arrived at Eastwood at 11:15 p.m., the station silent except for distant traffic. The platform light buzzed overhead, casting long shadows that slithered across puddles. I stood in the center of Platform 2, heart clenched, breath coming in shallow puffs. At 11:47 exactly, my phone vibrated. On the screen, Mark's silhouette, frozen in place beside the railing. I raced to the railing. There it was. His leather briefcase, open, papers splayed and soaked through. I knelt to inspect it. His wallet, ID, even the crumpled map of our weekend hiking trail. Everything was there except him. Across the tracks, Platform 1 glowed in sleepy yellow. No train approached. The rain intensified, each drop sounding like nails on my skull. I called his name, voice swallowed by hollowness. Then I heard it, the soft squeak of leather on metal. I spun around. His boot lay at my feet, the other one still hanging on the railing above, sole caked with mud. I reached up, fingertips brushing the muddy leather. A cold mist curled around my ankles, carrying whispers I couldn't decipher. "Mark. Mark." I staggered back to my car, stomach roiling, trembling so hard I could barely unlock the door. Saturday, someone found my car running in the station parking lot. I woke to flashing blue lights through the windshield and Deputy Harris tapping on the glass. She looked concerned but tired. "Ma'am, people saw you here all night. Are you okay?" I nodded, voice raspy. "He pings here every night." She frowned. "You mean the location ping? That's impossible. His phone is off." She sighed and handed me a damp piece of paper. It was my text exchange with Mark, printed out. Her words caught in my throat. "How did you get this?" I asked. "Our cyber forensics flagged a phantom beacon transmitting a spoofed GPS signal." She glanced around the empty lot. "Whatever's doing this isn't your fiancé." Her words settled heavy in my mind. I left before dawn, lights of the station receding behind me like distant specters. Sunday was unbearable. I couldn't work, couldn't eat. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched, half expecting another ping. I stared at our framed photo on the mantel, Mark's bright grin beside the harbor at sunset, and felt a cold finger trace down my spine. That night, I didn't wait for 11:47. I drove back to the station at 10:30, determined to catch whatever phantom was using his phone. Gray clouds crawled overhead, blotting out the moon. I parked across the street and watched the empty platform through my windshield. A lone CCTV camera sweated condensation like a giant unblinking eye. At 11:45, I slipped out and crept up under the camera's cone of light. Each footstep echoed hollowly. The platform lamp buzzed and dipped, then plunged me into darkness for a heartbeat before sputtering back. At 11:46, my phone vibrated. 1 minute to go. I closed my eyes, swallowed hard. At exactly 11:47, the screen lit up. I exhaled and raised the phone. The map dot blinked at the west end of the platform, near the track's edge. I edged forward, eyes darting. That's when I heard a soft metallic scrape behind me, like a boot dragged across concrete. I whirled. Blue headlights swept across the platform. The maintenance cart, abandoned years ago, its wheels frozen in rust. But there, inside the cart, stood a figure in Mark's shape, shoulders hunched, head bowed. I stumbled back, whining. My phone pinged again. This time, instead of a GPS icon, a message appeared. Come closer. My blood ran cold. Every instinct screamed to run, but my feet moved. I stepped toward the cart, light from my phone illuminating the figure's eyes. Empty hollows, black mirrors reflecting my own terror. Its lips peeled back in a grin that was all angles and cracked enamel. "Mark?" I whispered. My voice shook the air. The thing raised one hand, thin fingers stretching toward me. Its movements were too smooth, as though it slid rather than walked. Before I could react, the maintenance cart's wheels ground to life, rolling toward me in an agonizing crawl. I stumbled backward into the railing. The figure reached the cart's edge, shoulders brushing mine. I heard, inside my mind, a whispering chorus. "You made him wait. You made him late." I screamed, flinging myself over the railing. Concrete rushed up to meet me as I tumbled down the embankment, rain-slick grass shredding my palms. The screech of metal behind me chased my adrenaline-fogged senses all the way to my car. Blood dripped from my forehead as I slammed the door and sped away. I didn't stop until the city lights swallowed me whole. On Monday morning, I deleted our shared location tracker. I threw Mark's phone into a kitchen drawer with the briefcase, closed it, and locked the room. I told myself it was over. But tonight, at 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed again. The screen displayed one phrase in jagged text. "Thank you for coming." The platform light at Eastwood Station cast a single beam through my window. Outside, the fog drifts in like invitation. I discovered the earbuds on my desk at dawn, Marcus's earbuds, tangled like a snake among scattered memos and my discarded coffee cup. He'd vanished 3 weeks earlier during a solo field recording in Silverwood Forest, leaving behind only his backpack and a half-burned campfire. No phone, no passport, nothing. But there they were, his signature white buds curled around my notebooks as if he'd placed them there himself. The attached SD card glittered with a single file. forestfield003.wave. I plugged them into my laptop. The waveform hovered, a wavering line against black. I pressed play. At first, there was only the soft murmur of wind through pines, a steady rush like distant waves, then a faint drip of water, the snap of a twig. Marcus's voice appeared, hesitant. "Hello? Can anyone?" His words cut off in a crackle of static. Silence stretched until a breath exhaled so close it felt as though someone stood behind me. Then hundreds of voices whispered his name in unison. Marcus. Layered, overlapping, each echo dissolving into another until the track plunged into an oppressive stillness. My heart pounded like a hammer in my chest. I rewound and played it again. This time I heard something I missed. The smell of wet earth, sharp and sweet, carried through the speakers so vividly my nostrils flared. A second track loaded without warning, forestfield004.wave. I clicked it, crackling prelude, then Marcus panting. "They're all around me. I can't find the way back." Static tore the audio apart before the whispers began again, this time closer, urgent. "Marus, Marcus." They rose and fell like a living thing, then cut dead. The file ended in total silence. I sat frozen, earbuds still in my ears, every hair on my arm standing at attention. A single message appeared on my screen. Location: 39.1278 degrees north, 120.2345 degrees west. I Googled the coordinates. They pointed to Silverwood's North Ridge, a section I'd never heard him mention. I spent the morning glued to maps and weather cams. Rain was forecast for tonight, a heavy mist rolling in from the mountains. I thought of the mossy logs and dripping ferns where he often recorded. If those files made it back, maybe he'd stumbled upon something in the forest's deepest shadows. I couldn't ignore the pull to go look. By dusk, I packed my recorder, spare batteries, and a flashlight with a dying bulb. I slipped the earbuds into my coat pocket, resisting the urge to play the files again. In the passenger seat, the road snaked through pines that arched overhead like cathedral ribs. The air smelled of damp wood and gasoline, a promise of storm. I arrived at the Silverwood trailhead just as the last light bled from the sky. Mist curled through the trees, hugging trunks and pooling in hollows. My boots sank into the soggy leaf layer with every step. The forest breathed around me, a low, living sigh that made the hairs on my neck prickle. At the North Ridge overlook, I found it, a half-submerged log draped in ferns, just where the GPS marker indicated. The forest floor was littered with pine needles, broken twigs, and there, glinting pale against the dark green, Marcus's earbuds, tangled in a fern frond. My pulse hammered as I knelt to retrieve them. The buds were caked in mud and sap, but the cable was intact. I pressed play on my phone's music app, routing audio through the earbuds. The first track started automatically, the hush of wind, the drip of water. Then Marcus's voice. I hear it. Voices in the trees. I craned my neck, scanning the shadows. The whisper came again, then another. Echo. Echo. The voices swelled, rising into a low crescendo that rattled my skull. I stumbled backward, eyes wide. The forest seemed to shift, trunks bending just at the edge of vision, branches twitching in patterns that made no sense. The whispers thickened, spilling into my ears as if I'd been handed a chorus of ghosts. Who's there? I croaked. Silence answered. I fumbled for the flashlight. Its bulb flickered once, then plunged me into near darkness. My breath caught. I heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, circling the log. Something moved in the mist, a shape half formed by moonlight and shadow. I yanked the earbuds free and dropped them. They hit the ground with a wet plop. The footsteps halted. I held my breath, listening to my pulse thudding in my ears. Then the recorder slipped from my hand, thwacking against the moss. It skidded across ferns, coming to rest near the edge of the log. I heard a whisper, familiar and intimate. Don't leave me here. It was Marcus's voice, fragile as bone. I froze, then crawled forward, snatched the recorder. The LED blinked green as I hit play. The final track began with Marcus's heavy breathing. Then he whispered, Sarah, they're coming. A rustling of leaves, then a distant crack, like a branch snapping under weight. Marcus's voice broke. Sarah, help me! His cry swallowed by static, then the chorus of voices. Marcus, Marcus. This time the whispers blended into a single, breathy drone that pressed at my mind. I shoved the recorder into my pack, my legs buckled, and I retreated from the ridge, not daring to look back. The mist seemed to clutch at my ankles, tugging me deeper into the trees. Every breath tasted of rotten leaves and fear. When the forest trail spat me back onto the road, the recorder lay empty in my hand. No tracks left, no whispering chorus, only my ragged breathing. Back home, I scrubbed the mud from my shoes and dropped the earbuds in a glass of soapy water. The recorder's files remained on the SD card, 4 tracks, each marking the slow descent into whatever took Marcus. I listened once more in daylight. Markers, ambient noise, then desperation, then the voices, never ending. That night, I placed the earbuds on my desk beside the laptop and sat in the dark, staring at the empty log on my computer screen, the point where his last signal registered. Rain rattled against the window, a soft drum that echoed the forest's sigh. I felt a breath at the back of my neck and froze. My phone chimed with a new email. Subject, incoming file. Attached was forestfield005.wav, a file I hadn't seen before. My hands trembled as I clicked play. For the first 20 seconds, there was only silence. Then a single distorted tone, low, pulsing, like water dripping into an endless well. Then Marcus's voice, distant and warped. "I'm lost." It stretched into the darkness, swallowed by that same drone of whispers, now impossibly closer, as if they filled the room. I yanked the earbuds from the glass and hurled them across the room. They bounced off the wall and landed at my feet, tangled like snakes. The whispers echoed in my head long after the audio stopped, and I realized the forest never let go once it gripped you. Somewhere in the mist, Marcus waits, his voice a beacon that none can follow. And the echoes of his earbud file will always chase anyone who dares to listen. I was halfway through my cross-country drive when my headlights caught the glow of Marlowe's Diner, a roadside cafe tucked into a pine-lined curve of Highway 82. It was past midnight and the world smelled of damp asphalt and brewing coffee. I pushed open the creaking door, and the bell overhung my arrival with a hollow jingle. The cafe was empty except for one man perched at the counter, sipping from an ivory mug. He wore a charcoal coat, collar turned up, and offered me a half-smile that flickered like a dying bulb. "Long drive?" he asked, voice warm as fresh toast. I nodded. Just needed caffeine. He gestured to the stool beside him. "Company's on the house." Behind the counter, the barista, an older woman with tired eyes, nodded curtly but said nothing. I slid onto the stool. The man introduced himself as Adam. He ordered a black coffee, and I watched him cradle the mug as if it were a lifeline. Steam curled around his fingertips, carrying the bitter sweetness of roasted beans. We fell into easy conversation. He spoke of childhood summers hiking in the nearby woods, of finding hidden waterfalls and abandoned railroad tracks. I told him I was headed to Seattle to sort through my late aunt's affairs. At some point, he leaned over and asked, "May I?" He held up his phone and swiped through grainy photos. A cabin by a river, a broken Ferris wheel half buried in weeds, a small wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Marlowe's." His last shot was a blurry selfie of the two of us, arms around each other, smiles slack. I laughed and snapped my own photo, unaware how dim the diner's lights made us look. "Don't lose that," he told me, sliding the photo across the counter before vanishing into thin air. I blinked. The stool beside me was empty. My coffee sat untouched, still steaming, with a single fingerprint smudging the rim. "Hey!" I called, but the barista only looked at me apologetically. He was right here." Her gaze flickered to the counter. "Sir, you're mistaken. There was no one here but you." I scanned the cafe. No purse on the stool, no phone on the counter, no sign of Adam's cup. He introduced himself, Adam. My voice shook. She frowned, then lifted a ledger from beneath the register. "Nobody named Adam's come through tonight." She flipped pages. Blank ledger lines, no credit card slips, no name in the guest book. "I'm sorry, miss. I'm not sure what to tell you." My blood ran ice cold. I retraced my conversation in my mind, as certain as memory itself that it had happened. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the blurry selfie. The Polaroid crackled under the cafe's fluorescent glare. The barista's lips parted, then she shut them. "Where did you get that?" I took it." The image was grain-blurred, our faces half erased by shadow, yet I felt his presence in every pixel. She shook her head. "There's no such photo here. I've never seen that." Alarm prickled my spine. I left without another word, photo clutched in my palm, my coffee cooling in a string of forgotten sips. When I reached the highway, I stopped at a payphone and called my friend Lila. "He vanished," I whispered. "He never existed. But I have this." I held the Polaroid under the dim streetlight. Lila agreed to meet me at my aunt's house before dawn. In the passenger seat of my SUV, I rifled through my texts. No messages from Adam, no missed calls. Banking app showed no coffee charge. Social media search turned up 0 profiles matching his name or face. My hands trembled as I realized I couldn't even recall his last name. At Lila's house, we spread the photo on the kitchen table, its edges curling. "Maybe it's a prank," she ventured, but her voice quivered as she reached to touch the image. The moment her fingertip brushed the glossy surface, her phone buzzed with a notification. Security cam alert. We rushed downstairs to discover a new video file time-stamped at 12:04 a.m., 40 minutes before I arrived at the diner. The footage showed the empty road outside Marlowe's. A figure in a charcoal coat stepped into the frame, paused beneath a street lamp, and looked directly at the camera. Then he raised an arm, just once, and vanished, as though erased by unseen fingers. The video cut out with a static rasp. Lila and I stared at the frozen frame. A man with eyes too dark to read, mouth curved in a knowing smile. I tried to shake it off on my way to Seattle, but the road felt different. Every diner, every gas station seemed too pristine, too welcoming. I stopped at the State Highway Patrol Station to file a missing person report, but when I handed them the Polaroid and photo of the security video, they shook their heads. "We have no record of anyone disappearing on that stretch. No reports, no CCTV footage. Your friend never existed." They printed a blank missing person flyer for me, spaces for name, age, description, empty boxes waiting to be filled. I took it without protest, knowing it was a charade. At my aunt's house, I sorted through stacks of paperwork, half expecting a clue, perhaps a letter from Adam hidden among the bills. Instead, I found only family ledgers and dusty photo albums depicting generations of smiles in front of that same diner. Not once did I see a man in a charcoal coat. No mention of Adam in letters or diaries. That night, insomnia clawed at me. I sat at the kitchen table under a single lamp, the missing person flyer and Polaroid side by side. The room smelled of old wood and lavender sachets from my aunt's drawers. I thought of the man's voice, rich and confident, and his promise of company. I wondered, had I imagined warmth in a frozen coffee cup, hope in the jingle of a diner bell? At 2:17 a.m., my phone skipped to life. A message from an unknown number. "Are you still looking?" My thumb hovered over the reply button. Before I could respond, a soft knock tapped on the window pane. Rain streamed in sheets across the glass. I stood, heart pulsing, and approached the window. Outside, under the flickering porch light, stood Adam. His charcoal coat was soaked, droplets glistening on the fabric. He held something in his hand, another blurry Polaroid. He smiled that same ghost smile, eyes gleaming with invitation. I waited. His voice drifted through the glass. I pressed my palm to the window, matching my hand against his. The glass was cold. I opened the door on trembling hinges. Adam stepped inside, the threshold silent as a tomb. His presence filled the room with the aroma of stale coffee and forest pine. I wanted to believe. I wanted to ask his name, to feel the warmth of his hand. Instead, I saw the Polaroid in his grasp, my face, eyes wide, printed over the empty missing person flyer from the roadside patrol, my own image pasted into blank spaces. He held it out. "I'm real," he whispered, and every light in the house flickered. I backed away, heart breaking into shards. He watched me, unblinking. Then he turned, walking toward the hallway, footsteps muted on the rug. As he passed the kitchen mirror, I glimpsed his reflection, gone. In its place, the empty hallway stretched behind me. I ran to the entryway. He was gone. The Polaroid lay in the doorway, face down. I picked it up, flipped it over. Blank white paper. Morning light came pale through the curtains. I burned the Polaroid and the missing person flyer in the fireplace, watching the edges curl into ash. But deep in my pocket, my own phone vibrated with a new notification. New photo saved. I opened the gallery. The last frame, a reflection in a mirror. My face pressed against the glass. But behind me, in the corner of the image, I saw him standing in shadow, his hand outstretched, offering a final invitation.